Given the risks to the outlook, I consider it appropriate for the committee to proceed cautiously in adjusting policy. That was the comment of Fed Governor Janet Yellen yesterday, impacting global markets. She went on to say that developments abroad imply that meeting our objectives for employment and inflation will likely require a somewhat lower path for the federal funds rate than was anticipated in December. Well, Simon French is chief economist at Panmure Gordon, and he joins us now. Thanks very much for coming in, Simon. I mean, we've seen the impact her comments have had on global markets. I know you had foreseen one rate move this year. Do you still believe that after her comments?
I still think they'll manage to eke out one, but it'll be a close-run thing with the US presidential election in the second half of the year. They will want to avoid a policy decision that impacts on markets during that period of time. So my best guess is that they will go with June, but that'll be it for the year.
When you say eke it out, what kind of rate hike then would we see?
25 basis points is almost certainly the move that they would choose. The question, of course, is why markets are surprised by this, because it took the Federal Reserve 7 years to leave the zero lower bound effectively, and then suddenly to expect them to go on a fairly aggressive glide path. They hadn't guided to that, and indeed when the rest of the world's central banks are all taking a very different, a divergent path, very difficult for the US to decouple in that fashion.
Well, that's it. It is that divergence. I know you quite believe in the divergent trade when it comes to the dollar. Because of what we're seeing, and I suppose the fact that that next move is another month or so down the line, is that still in play for you?
Well, I think it is, because there remains fairly decent core inflationary pressures in the US economy. And let's remember that the FOMC were guiding back in December towards 4 rate hikes this year. They've come back to 2. So Chair Yellen's comments yesterday suggested a gentler glide path. That, for me to seem, would seem to be right with 1. The issue would be, by saying no rate rises in 2016, you're almost saying that inflation can run at whatever rate, when it's picked up quite sharply, certainly in the core inflationary space. It's picked up quite sharply, and that chilling effect from energy costs is going to start to leave the comparators, the year-on-year comparators, and therefore they'll be closer to that 2% target.
But what we saw, I suppose, in the markets was the dollar rally we've seen the last couple of weeks really unwound following her comments. So how do you sort of play that?
Well, I think it's the fact that the FOMC don't speak with a single voice. So we've had other FOMC members providing a lot of support to the US dollar by making the case for a more aggressive glide path for the Fed funds rate. But ultimately, the chair will, she can't of course force her committee. She is the chair, and therefore she has the most powerful voice, the most impactful voice in terms of markets, and therefore the dollar took back some of its gains yesterday. But I still, as you just mentioned, I still believe in that divergence trade, because the US, even on an exceptionally gentle glide path, or indeed if the US didn't move at all, if the Federal Reserve didn't move at all, it would still be diverging from the ECB and the BOJ, who are in highly stimulative mode. And we just don't know what the People Bank of China will do, but our best guess is that they will be more stimulative heading into the second half of 2016.
Did you take from it that she thought that December perhaps that we saw they made the wrong decision last year?
Oh no, I think the rate rise was the right one. I think you would struggle to find an FOMC member who disagreed with raising 25 basis points. In fact, actually, closer to home here in the UK, the Bank of England is also quite keen to move and make a sign to households that zero is not forever, and I think that's quite important. So they wanted that. The issue is probably the 4 dots that they had penciled in for 2016. They probably regret quite such an aggressive trajectory, which guided markets down a different path to what is now going to happen.
And that's the problem with these central banks, by becoming more transparent and open, having to sort of backtrack makes them not look idiots, but actually a lack of understanding of what we're seeing in the markets, or not? Well,
they are economic forecasters like the rest of us, and they are prone to the same mistakes and the reading of changing data like everyone else. And I think it would be a mistake, and we have heard rumblings from FOMC members, to reverse out of the position of publishing the dot plot. I think that would be a mistake. I think markets are better informed with greater transparency, even if that means that some are accused of being unreliable boyfriends and others of being inconsistent. I think it's better that markets have as much information as they can to make informed decisions, rather than a situation where it is all done cloak and dagger and we get policy surprises. We saw how badly that worked with the SMB last year in January, and the PBOC in August. Yeah, absolutely right. The People Bank of China in August. I certainly prefer a transparent central bank to one that rolls back from that.
In terms of those informed decisions, we mentioned that the dollar and trading that divergence. What else how would you be looking to sort of trade what we're seeing in terms of the Fed?
Well, I still think the US economy story, just branching out a little bit from just the Fed, the US economy, the growth story remains strong. There is a strong household formation, demographic profile of a working age population that's going to be able to boost output, growth rate in the US economy. So for investors trying to trade the divergence, Fed is just reacting. The reason why it's on a divergent path, it's reacting to the underlying macroeconomy in the US that is on a different growth path to the ones that we've seen in Japan, in the Eurozone, in China. The data point for me that is the most compelling is that the working age population in Japan peaked in 1992, peaked in the Eurozone in 2013, it peaked in China in 2015, but in the US it isn't until the early 2030s that their working age population will peak on current trajectories, and that just enables the economy to have a big supply side boost that will drive growth and enable the US economy to grow at a faster trajectory than the rest of the developed world.
OK, got to leave there, but Simon French, thanks very much. Simon French there from Panmure Gordon.